1. My uncle used to be in politics, so during elections he travels a lot. He's like a scout for the politicians, planning their travels, managing their lodgings, etc. During one such occasion, he traveled 2 days earlier to take care of their lodging and accommodations at a remote rural town. There are no hotels like today, but there's one guest house which was not very rush, and my uncle decided to stay there for the night. He met the caretaker, Bob, asked him about a room, and made all the necessary arrangements. Bob told him there are no other guests and casually remarked that people used to hear noises during the night. My uncle said it was okay as he didn't believe in ghosts, but Bob still told him he won't be locking his house and that if he changed his mind, he's welcome to sleep in the spare room. After having dinner at Bob's house, he went to relax at the guest house. It was still early, but having nothing else to do, he decided to drink some booze he brought with him. After only one drink, he started hearing noises, put down his drink and listened closely. The sound came from upstairs and sounded like someone dragging a chain or heavy object. There was no power supply, and he grabbed a torchlight and immediately ran upstairs to investigate, but the sound abruptly stopped. Uncle went downstairs and the sound started again, but he decided to just ignore it. After some time he felt sleepy in spite of the dragging sound, and he lit a cigarette just to keep awake. He lay down on the bed and started smoking, and the sound also gradually fades away. He finished smoking and threw the cigarette butt on the floor, and then this happened. The cigarette butt immediately flew upwards and fell on the bed as if someone threw it. My uncle decided it's about time he left the house, and promptly left to sleep at Bob's place. The day after, one of our relatives, brother-in-law, working with my uncle, arrived earlier, and as you guessed it, he also decided to sleep at the guest house as it looked more comfortable than sharing a small room at Bob's house. Bob gave him the same warning as my uncle. Ignoring them, he waved goodnight and went to sleep. Around midnight, Uncle heard a loud banging on the door, and when he opened it, the relative, pale as a sheet, barged into the room and decided to sleep on the same bed with Uncle, even though there was still another bed. Bob and Uncle simply laughed, and my uncle often joked it was the most congested bed he ever slept on. 2. My mom and I moved into a house when I was in my junior year of high school, fall 2005. The house was built in the mid-1940s, and the couple who built the home both passed away in it in the 90s. We moved in and lived there for a few weeks before anything strange started happening. My mom left for work around 6 a.m. and usually didn't get home until 6 or 7 p.m., so I was alone quite a bit. One day I came home from school and all the TVs and lights were on. I thought it was strange, but chalked it up to a power surge and went on with my life like nothing happened. End of that same week, I had a half day at school and got home around midday. Sat down at the kitchen table and started doing homework, since I was going out of town with friends the next morning. All that was on was the light over the table, no TV or radios that might distract me. After a while, I started hearing talking from the other side of the house. Freaked out, I shouted, "Who's there?" but realized after a minute or two that it was the TV in my mom's room being on. I figured she just accidentally left it on, turned it off, and went back to my homework. After that, it was a month or so before anything else happened. I was at the table doing homework, listening to my MP3 player, when I noticed an antique lamp turn on in the living room. I thought old house, old lamp, old wiring, and unplugged it from the wall, then went back to my homework. Not even 5 minutes later, the TV in the living room turns on. So I unplugged that and everything else in that room, thinking something was up with the wires. Mice from the house sitting vacant for years or something like that. Another 5 minutes or so goes by, and then the radio in the kitchen no more than 10 feet from me turned on. The radio had a dial on-off switch that was also the volume, so I have no way of explaining how it just decided to turn on. That got unplugged too. When my mom got home from work, I explained what happened. She agreed with my first assumption that the house had some shoddy wiring, and everything was fine. Weird stuff like this started happening at least once a week. A TV or a radio would randomly be on, even though we both knew it hadn't been either one of us to turn it on. Neither of us ever felt unsafe or threatened by whatever was causing it. My mom started affectionately blaming it on George. "Oh, George must think it's too quiet in here," or "George just needs to catch up on his stories." It became kind of a joke to us over time. When I moved out to start college, everything stopped. When I moved back in after college, it started up again, but only every month or so. Now that I'm living in an apartment with my significant other, it doesn't happen at all. Not even when I spend lengths of time there. My mom to this day embraces whatever it was as a friendly presence who just didn't like the house to be quiet. Even after we found out that the guy who built it and died in that house was named George, she has no clue how she chose that name to start calling it by. Just that it made sense to call it by that name. 3. So this used to happen to me when I was in high school. Every time I came back from school, I had really late hour classes here in Mexico, I had to walk right next to a local pantheon. In Mexico, a pantheon is a cemetery for really humble people. They have usually only dirt with no grass or trees. The graves have only wooden crosses and they are really small, the typical Dia de los Muertos kind of cemetery in the movies. To get home, I would have to walk beside it at around 10 p.m. It was a long walk with only some streetlights showing me the way. It all started with one light going out behind me one time. I thought it was odd it went out just when I passed by, but didn't think it was that much strange. After all, it isn't uncommon in Mexico to have blackouts from time to time. Shitty electrical structure. Even if it was only one light, I thought nothing of it. The next night, it happened again. Except this time, it wasn't only one light, it was all the lights. Not at the same time, no. They were turning off right behind me as I was walking by them, like something behind was making it happen. This happened all nights when I came back from school, getting progressively more scary as I started hearing voices coming from behind me. Whispers, steps. This was weird because it was 2009. During this time, crime was really common in my town, and there was a big economic depression in Mexico, so there were a lot of robbers and dangerous people in the streets. So people would get home early and lock the door. As a result, it was rare to see a person outside after 9. So my way back home was usually desolated. Or so I thought, when I started to see shadows in the corner of my eye when the lights started going out. After 2 weeks of the same thing, I was pretty much done dealing with it alone. So I told my mom. She didn't believe me, of course, and my close friends from school. My cousin was among them. They, of course, were skeptical and even laugh about it, thinking I was just scared of walking by the pantheon alone, and wanted them to join me. Since we all lived in the same area, they agreed to come with me once they finished the day. When we were on our way out, I thought maybe it was not going to happen, since one time I walked on that street on my way home with a relative and nothing happened. So I was really shocked when the lights started going out as we all walked, followed by sounds of whispers and footsteps. Easy to say they were shitting their pants, not even kidding. Once we finally got back to my place, they were scared of going back home alone. So I went with them to walk them home. It wasn't very far away, and of course we totally skipped the Pantheon Street. When I left my last friend at his house and started walking towards mine, I noticed it was almost 12 a.m. That's really late and dangerous for a high schooler living in Mexico, so I started walking promptly to my place. It was all silent and a little dark. Then I heard whispers, then footsteps, and I thought, no, I'm not even close to that place. Then I walked in front of a house with a big mirror in their doorway. It had a big fence with a mirror behind. That's when I saw my reflection. And it wasn't alone. There was something else behind me. Like a man standing 10 feet away from me, looking at my back. That's when I did it. I started running and crying back home. Yeah, I'm not particularly proud of that, but hey, at least I'm not lying. I got home and started crying to Mom, telling her between sobs what happened. She was shocked and a little in disbelief. Then I told her to ask my cousin. My cousin told her what happened, and then I think she started believing it a little bit. Not fully, though. I think she went through we were playing a prank with her or something. After that, the same thing with the lights kept happening for a long time, with the noises getting more loud and close until something, or someone, helped me with it. I'm still really grateful for this person for helping me all these years ago, even if we don't talk anymore. Now I'm a 26-year-old college graduate with a good job that I love. I go swimming 2 days a week as a way of losing some weight. The problem is, it's all happening again. It's starting gradually, but this time I can feel it. I can feel the same sensations, the same fear. The problem is, it's not happening close to the Pantheon anymore. It's in another path that I have to use to get back from the swimming lessons. I need help. Update. Hey, it's me again. So I posted about the thing that follows me yesterday. I wanted to write again about my last encounter with it 2 weeks ago. It's short and it was weird, so remember I told you guys I saw this man behind me through a mirror when I was in high school? Well, I saw him again shortly after the lights started going off again on my way home. This time it was in the morning, and I saw him with more detail. I was sleeping on a Saturday. Usually I sleep until late on the weekends because I have to be up really early in the morning to go to work in the week. So I was really annoyed when I got up at 9 a.m. When I opened my eyes, I felt something weird. Like that feeling when your little cousin is watching you eat ice cream. I rolled to the other side of my bed facing the door and I saw him. It was a tall, skinny man in front of the door looking directly at me. I instantly freaked out, no joking. I jumped in my bed and felt my heart was racing like crazy. I got a quick look at him and then he was gone. No passing through walls or anything like that. He was just there 1 second and then the next he wasn't there anymore. I got really uneasy and got out of my room. This is the first time I'd seen him with so much detail. He had almost no hair, was tall, with a worn-off shirt with holes in them. His skin was a little grey, and the weird thing is, even though he was looking at me, I looked at him back. I did not see his eyes. I just saw 2 big holes where his eyes should have been. I'm not saying he had no eyes, though. Maybe it was just that I couldn't look at his eyes because he was only there for a brief moment. Yesterday when I posted the beginning of my experience, a Reddit user gave me some information. He pretty much told me the same things that the person who helped me back then told me. He also told me that this thing was not bound to the Pantheon like I thought it was bound to me. And that would explain why all this is happening again. I think it is not the first time I've encountered this thing. And no, I'm not talking about the Pantheon, you see. Things like this have been happening to me since I was a kid. And I remember seeing a tall figure back when I was a kid. One that always came to my bed in the nights and just watched. I never saw him, though. I was way too scared and always stayed under my blanket. But I heard him first at the bathroom. It always started with the sound like breaking sticks, then walking on them. I heard the door open, and then feet began dragging on the carpet until they stopped in front of my bed. I was so scared I almost cried at times. I would always fall asleep under the blanket to wake up and find the door of the bathroom open. I had to close it at nights or Mom would get mad. That continued for years. The difference is, contrary to the Pantheon incident, my mom believed me about the skinny man, because she saw him go to my room once. Apparently one time she was watching TV late and with no sound, when she saw a tall figure coming out of the bathroom. The bathroom is right in between her room and mine. She said it was a tall, skinny man slowly walking to my room. She freaked out, got up, and turned on the lights. But there was nothing in my room. She woke me up and made me sleep in her bed that night. I surely remember that last part. I never knew why until now. What should I do? 4. I have 2 cats, an older grey one named Blue, and a younger black one named Batty. Batty, being an older kitten, is naturally very hyper and playful. He has bursts of energy where he flies around the house, turning and skidding his claws on the ground, only to lay down and doze off as his energy subsides. Last night, around 2 a.m., my mom woke up. She told me she usually wakes up around this time, so she laid in bed for a few minutes, before deciding she would go outside on the back porch and have a cigarette before returning to sleep. Sleepily, she got up from bed and began walking to the kitchen. My kitchen and dining room are basically the same room, only being separated by an island where the stove is. As soon as she rounded the corner from her room, she noticed something. She knew my cat Batty was sitting behind the dining room table just out of sight because she could hear him. But she also noticed something else. From behind the table, she saw a pair of arms in the dark. They were low to the ground, almost as if whoever they were attached to was sitting down. They were sticking straight up in the air, going up and down slowly, the fingers twisting and grabbing the air in an unnatural way. She said the arms were twisting in ways human arms shouldn't naturally twist. When she replayed the motion to me the next morning, it looked rhythmic almost, her arms going up and down, grabbing for nothing in the air. At first, her mind automatically went to the arms belonging to me. She thought this was the most reasonable inference because, admittedly, I am usually up late at night, and it wouldn't be too strange for me to be playing with my cats. But then she got a heart-sinking feeling of dread when she realized it wasn't me. She said she had never felt so scared in her life. After standing there for about 15 seconds watching it, she reached over and turned the light on. The arms stopped mid-air and disappeared, and Batty went running full speed into the next room. She says she walked carefully past and ran onto the back porch and told me she couldn't sleep after that. I think it would be a good time to mention that a few weeks ago she had another experience where she woke up and saw a figure sitting at the edge of her bed. She shares a room with my younger brother, who's 8, and she thought it was him, so she asked him what he was doing and got no answer. She got her answer eventually when she looked over and saw my brother sleeping soundly. She said after she looked back, whatever was at the edge of her bed was gone. But she said this experience gave her no fear. She didn't feel threatened or scared like she did with her experience last night. All I can say is that I don't know how to feel about my cat anymore since he was interacting with whatever it was. If anyone has any input or comments about this, I'd love to hear it. It's been about an hour since she told me about it, but I can't seem to get it out of my head. 5. In West Colorado, you can find the Uncompahgre Valley. From nearly anywhere on the Uncompahgre Plateau, which bands west around the valley, you can view a light in the Gunnison National Forest on the Mendicant Ridge. It looks like it's hovering above US Route 50 at night. I asked around while I was there, and the locals say they've noticed the light, and an old-timer I spoke to claims it's always been there. Sometimes it flickers on and off, other times it holds steady for long periods of time, or goes completely black for hours. Some nights it is accompanied by 1 to 2 other far smaller lights, but never more than 2 extra lights are seen. The bright light is always orange. When accompanied by others, they are dimmer and look white or blue. This behavior, other than the maximum number of lights in color, has no discernible pattern. Viewing the area from satellite maps, there are no structures, roads, or infrastructure of any kind in this area. I've hiked in and around the Gunnison Gorge and the surrounding area multiple times. The small prop plane from Montrose Airport to Denver International flies low and slow over the peak these lights can be spotted on. And again, there are no roads or houses. There's little to no chance they are caused by a house or headlights. These lights are so tall and rugged it simply isn't worth it. I've run through many possibilities, from headlights to a hunting cabin, to a campfire. However, there are no roads, so there can be no headlights. I find it hard to believe someone has been maintaining a campfire or cabin in the woods for the 70+ years people say they have seen this light. If there is to be an explanation other than ghost did it, then it would have to be one of the following. Sonoluminescence. If a sound wave collapses a gas bubble quickly enough, it'll emit a short burst of light. In laboratory conditions, these bubbles can be set up to be created and destroyed continuously, emitting flickers of light. If there's a chance this same phenomena could repeat itself in nature, then this could be the source of the light. Scintillation. This is a process of luminescence where the light is emitted when radiation is absorbed. There is a movie trope where radioactive stuff glows green. This is where that came from. Inorganic compounds like salt could be absorbing radiation from some sort of natural reactor like Oklo, and releasing that radiation in part as light. Bioluminescence, my favorite theory, and admittedly the most likely, even when compared to natural nuclear reactors. Jellyfish, fireflies, some types of fungus. there are examples of organic compounds with their own luminescence. I can imagine if there was a super dense megafauna type fungus that is bioluminescent, then it could be visible for a long distance. If anyone has heard of or seen this light, please tell of your experience. I would like to hear people's theories. Someday I'm going to go on a several-day hike up to the lights and bring back photos, so it will be interesting to see who was closest. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Paranormal Stories, episode 155. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Rather appropriately enough, given the kind of weird lights in the last story there, I got a message on Twitter from someone whose story I'd done previous. I think it was quite a while ago now. I may have actually done 2 of theirs. And if we can bring this message up, there we go. I do not like the new Twitter layout. Okay, yes, here we are. Right. Yes, the lantern, the boatman, and the laughing children. Okay, good. Firstly, he told me that story had actually been featured in something called Evil Encounters Season 1. That was a very good, a very pleasant, nice bit of information to have. But the reason I'm mentioning them here is because they're also a YouTuber. And they do a very interesting thing if you like narration, so I thought it would be a good idea to pass it on to you. He's called the 80s Slasher Librarian. And what he does is he takes out-of-print books with Friday the 13th sort of thing, Michael Myers, Freddy. You know, I think if you know anything about me, I think Friday the 13th is the absolute coolest of those. But anyway, he does readings of these books, which are out of print and can't really be found anymore, unless you happen to stumble across them at a book sale or a charity shop or the like. It looks pretty legit. I believe he has permission from the authors. He even mentioned that some of the authors have done introductions for him for his videos, which is quite cool. And I thought it might be something you guys would enjoy. So if I haven't put the link in the description, I should have done. Do yell at me until I do so. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.